Hello, YouTube. It is me, Wesley. I'm back. This is gonna be kind of a weird video, a little out of left field. First things first, I want to get some mining done. I'm low on resources and I need more, so I'm gonna be just kind of mining throughout this whole video in the background. Second, I didn't record this audio with the video, so that's the thing I'm trying for the first time. We'll see how that works out. But anyways, onto the topic of today's video. Shipping culture and fanfiction in teenagers. More specifically, or more broadly, I guess you could say, the concept of teenagers, particularly young ones, like between the ages of 13 and 16, sexualizing celebrities and YouTubers and film and TV characters, and specifically creating fanfictions about them. I'm not a teenager anymore, but I was recently a teenager, and so I feel like I can say a bit about teenagers. The first thing I want to immediately communicate with teenagers who are doing any of those things, it's okay, dude. It's fucking okay, dude. There's this huge wave in recent years of adults, often who aren't the ones being quote-unquote fantasized about, criticizing these teenagers for doing this shits, thinking this way, writing these fan fictions, whatever. I think it's kind of mean of them because in a lot of cases the adults saying these kids are perverts or sociopaths or whatever random descriptor they're using to say that's weird. They're often 25 or older. Not all the time, but usually 25 or older. And here's the thing. Once you're 25, you've kind of reached this age, or this stage of life where your body is physically starting to finish itself. And this includes the mind. So like on average, when you reach 25, your body will stop making new things faster than it kills the old things, if that makes sense. So like essentially when you hit 25, it's the start of like, they say living is slowly dying. It really only starts at 25. Between the ages of 27 and 30, your mind really fully sets in, stops maturing. They say life gets better after you're 30, and it's because that's when your mind has finally settled pretty much. Your psyche is like, okay, I think I know what's happening at this point. So the thing is, I feel like once you've started to reach that age, 25 to 30, where you literally stop thinking like a youth does, your body doesn't work the way a youth does, your mind doesn't work the way it used to. Your input on youth and whatever activities they choose to participate in are now kind of outdated. Not irrelevant. You should still have some say in what you do, but it's outdated because youth and youth culture is evolving and you're no longer evolving with them. You've surpassed that stage of your life. So, like, where I'm going with this basically is you can no longer view what youth do with the level of understanding that a youth have of that. So basically, you don't get it anymore. How like teenagers say to their parents, oh, you don't get it, mom, you don't get it, dad. Like, you don't get it. You don't get it anymore. Also, quick note in there, this is just my opinion. But as a youth myself, under the age of 25, but not quite being a teenager anymore, I'd like to think my opinion is valid and should be considered when discussing concerns surrounding youth. So I don't know, maybe you should consider what I have to say. But to each their own. But anyways, yeah, I think it's kind of mean that these adults are calling out teenagers and saying they're crazy or perverted or whatever for shipping and writing fan fictions and sexualizing these people that they see in their everyday life. And the reason I think this is because, one, they don't really get what that teenager is thinking anymore, as I've established. And two, what I'm going to establish after this point, they did the same shit when they were that age, and they just don't remember it that way. Teenagers have always been sexualizing celebrities and fictional characters and musicians, whoever. The biggest difference between now and then is the access to the internet. When I was a kid, teenagers, and more creepily some adults, were sexualizing the child stars I grew up with watching on TV. Daniel Radcliffe once made a really good point when someone told him it would be weird to see him being more sexualized in something he was going to be acting in coming up. And he asked why, and they said, "Oh, well, we watched you grow up." And he responded by remarking how nobody seemed to have a problem with sexualizing when it came to Emma Watson. That's a good recent example of sexualizing a young celebrity. Specifically female, by the way, that's also important to note. I think a lot of this also comes into effect with we're more judgmental of teen girls than we are of teen boys. But that's another thing. I digress. Young men and boys would definitely talk about what they do to Emma Watson if they had the chance. I am 100% certain that growing up, you would definitely hear somebody, if you were at the right age, talking about like a friend saying like, "Oh, I did all these things to Emma Watson." It happens. It was a thing. And maybe that's a little too recent for you because that is still closer to my generation. Granted, you know, I'm pretty sure they were filming the first movie the year I was born. I'm not really sure about that. But maybe it's still a little too recent. But we can step even further back into the 80s and look at Molly Ringwald. She did a series of movies with the Brat Pack throughout the 80s, which explored teenage sexuality quite a bit, actually. And I respect that. But you can bet your ass the teen boys were talking about and fantasizing about her inappropriately at the time. Not even to mention the full blown adult males who did the same thing. She was 16 when the movie 16 Candles came out, and only 18 when Pretty in Pink came out. So, in some of the things she was definitely sexualized in, and some of the things that other teenage boys and even adults were thinking of, she was a teenager. A huge concern is sexualizing minors. If you're not a minor, like if you are of age and you're having sexual fantasies about a minor or you're sexualizing a minor, that's inappropriate. Don't do that. One of the things that they talk about in a lot of these is that they're sexualizing minors. And in the case of a minor sexualizing another minor, I understand that. I don't think it's appropriate. But I do understand if you're 14 or 15 and you're thinking of another, say, 15, 16-year-old that you'd like to be doing stuff with, that's more appropriate than you thinking of, say, a 35-year-old that you've seen that you want to be doing those things with. If you're well over the age of 20, 23, like if you're well past that and you're sexualizing teenagers, that's inappropriate. Stop doing that. That's called pedophilia. I don't support that. This small point I'm making in the middle of this is it happens with all ages. Teenagers are going to sexualize everyone of all ages, no matter what. Maybe even the 80s is too recent for you. We could step even further back into the early 40s and take a look at a very young teen who famously wrote some sexually natured things in her diary, Anne Frank. She was only 16 when she died, but she was writing in her diary for some time before that. It was quite a while. She wrote many years. She wrote in her diary, and she wrote a lot about her sexuality and puberty, and including how she viewed other girls sexually. Interesting fact: Anne Frank was attracted to women, as noted in her diary, and about masturbation. And I bring up Anne Frank and her diary and these things because of the common argument that adults make, saying things like, "Oh, when I was 14, I was only worried about what the cafeteria served for lunch and how to beat the next level on my favorite video games and like dinosaur chicken nuggets and stuff." And I am absolutely not afraid to say that that's bullshit. When you were a teen, you were probably thinking about those things. I hope they don't serve shitty pizza next time on lunch, but you were also likely worried about puberty, sex, dating, and you guessed it, hot celebrities. So, Anne Frank is a great example of how young teens going through puberty are confused about their sexuality and trying to deal with, all this new changing stuff with puberty, like the hormones and looking at people who they consider attractive and daydreaming about all the dirty things they do to that person is far from weird or crazy. It's very normal in teens, especially young ones at the start of puberty. They don't really know what's going on. They don't know how to handle their feelings or anything. But what's bringing it to attention more now than ever, I think, is the internet. I think that's really the key difference here. Because if in the 80s you said to your friend, oh, I'd love to have sex with Molly Ringwald, or you wrote in your diary, and you describe that, you're like, oh, I do this and that to her, and she do this and that back, you could forget about that by the end of the week. Your friends could forget about it. If you wrote it down, you could burn the paper. 20 years time, no one's going to know it existed because only you and like a handful of other people would have known. But now if you say, oh, I'd love to have sex with Harry Styles, you or your friend could think like, oh, I know exactly what I do. Like you guys could be like, oh, I do this and I do that, and he'd do this and that, and it'd be whatever, And then you guys could maybe come to a consensus like, oh, we should write about that so we can remember it. Like, and whereas in the 80s, you could write about it on a piece of paper because there was no internet to put it on. Now you could put it on the internet and kind of share that with other people, like you're wanting to get validation from your peers around you. And it's so easy to do that on the internet. Just post whatever you're thinking about. And if someone says, oh, same, or me too, or like, oh, I think the same way, like, you're going to feel a little better about that. And that's really what teenagers are seeking. So they're putting it on the internet. And really, when it's on the internet, it's, forever. They always tell you, but no one really considers how forever it is. But it's going onto the internet now because they're seeking the validation. And there's nothing wrong with that because it's always happened. It's always been a thing. It's just that now you can put something on the internet and thousands of other strangers can remember that forever and hold that against you in the future or something. Whereas if you did that in like the 80s or the 40s, like no one's going to remember. No one's going to be any the wiser. If you're a teenager and you're confused about your sexuality, or maybe you don't even know you're confused about your sexuality. Maybe you're just like, oh, I just really think that this person's really hot and I'm going to write about all the dirty things they do because I think about that all the time. Like, you're not a sociopath. You're not a pervert. You're a normal teenager experiencing the same things teenagers have been experiencing since the dawn of time. Sexual confusion and puberty. It's normal. Teens are doing that. And while it's not entirely new to be able to show these things to the object of your affection, since sending creepy fan mail and stalking celebrities and whatever has been a thing since Beatlemania and even longer, it's now incredibly easy to do that with the internet, which is, I think, where people start coming in with heavy criticism. In the case where you're actively shoving your sexual fantasies of someone in their face, even after they've expressed that it makes them uncomfortable, then it's starting to become a concern. You should be respecting people's boundaries, and if they don't like seeing those things being written about them, you shouldn't be showing them that. I mean, really, if they don't want you to be sexualizing them, you shouldn't be sexualizing them, period. But no one can stop you from doing that. I can't stop you from writing it. You can still write fan fictions about them that maybe would make them uncomfortable. But if you keep it to yourself and away from those people who find it uncomfortable, discomforting, whatever, I guess you're not hurting anyone. When you become famous, you need to be prepared for these things to happen. People are going to sexualize you. It's just how it is. It's an unfortunate reality. But as a fan of someone, you should also be trying to respect them. And especially if the person you're making uncomfortable with this, or the person you're sexualizing or anything, especially if they're a minor, you can't legally be spreading those fantasies online. If you're not a minor, I'm going to say this again, if you're not a minor and you're fantasizing about a minor, that's called being a pedophile, and that's creepy and illegal, and you should stop. But it's not about that. I'm talking about minors, teenagers, youth. Since I am playing Minecraft in this video, I will bring up the current issue in the Minecraft YouTube community surrounding the YouTuber Dream and George is Not Found and Sapnap, the Dream Team, whatever. This video isn't actually about them specifically. I know, surprise, a lot of people are making videos about it, or were. I don't know if I'm late to the trend. It just so happens to be a really great world example of this. I have been talking about this for years with my friends, actually, about this weird thing adults have with the shipping idea. In the case of Dream and George is Not Found and Sapnap, whatever, I actually watch their videos. I am a fan of the Dream Team. While I'm not a part of the shipping and fanfiction scene personally, I know they have a fairly large following on that end because they've talked about it before. and other people are talking about it on YouTube and on Twitter and things. In a stream, Dream posted actually, which I will link a video with a clip of that in the description below. Dream, George, and Sapnap actually all go on record to say they don't care if you sexualize them. They actually think it's funny to see the fan fiction and fan art of them. So do with that what you will. But, you know, that is just one case. Dream does bring up a good point in the video, which I respect. If the creator you're sexualizing doesn't appreciate that, or if they're a minor, that's not cool of you to do, and I fully agree with him there. The point that I'm making with the Dream thing is there's people getting angry on his behalf for it, but he's not angry about it. They don't need to be angry about that. And he talks about that in the video, so you can see that there. So I guess the two main points in this video were, one, stop getting angry at and bullying teens and youth online for sexualizing people who haven't otherwise said they don't want them to be doing that. It's not your place, and you probably did it once too, so it's hypocritical. And two, if you're a teen and you're sexualizing celebrities or YouTubers or musicians or whatever, and they haven't told you not to and you're not hurting anyone, and you feel bad because these adults are calling you crazy or weird or perverted or whatever, just remember you're not weird, you're not crazy, you're a teenager or youth or kid or whatever you want to call yourself. And that's normal for people your age. You are valid. Not everyone's going to be doing this, but it's not strange to be doing it. That is a common theme in youth and teens. So that's all I wanted to say on that. Anyways, I hope I have acquired enough resources for the next video or stream. I have not posted any videos recently, but I have been streaming. So be sure to check out my Twitch, which will be linked in the description below as well. Yeah, I hope you consider what I've had to say and think about maybe where you were at that time in life, if you're one of those people who is thinking maybe that's a little weird for these teens to do. Maybe kind of look back, remove the rose-colored glasses, and think, I think I was doing the same thing as a teen too. Because I know when I was young, I definitely looked upon some people and thought, oh, I really like them. I'm obsessed with them or whatever. Like, it's how teens function. It's normal. Granted, I'm a little of a bit of a weird case because I am asexual, so there was never really that much sexuality in it per se, but I digress. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you consider what I've had to say. Be sure to comment, like, and subscribe, all the good stuff. And have a nice day. Bye-bye.